basically buy a silver coat. And it's grounding because you've been through it and you know everyone so well. Oh, like, you know, I know that we're all strangers, but like, you care and you're on the super touchy person. Thank you so much. Seriously, I'm so excited.
Hi, I'm Shayla Klein, and I'm sitting here with Rachel Fetty Anderson, who is running against Shelley Moore Capito for U.S. Senate here in November. Rachel, what are you drinking today?
Today I'm having this glorious orange kombucha. It's very sparkly. It may make me sneeze, but it's very yummy.
Let's start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your attorney experience. What kind of law were you in?
I've been practicing over 25 years, and I've done public interest work the entire time. I worked for some legal aid type practices, doing disability work, and I've worked for legal aid proper, and I've worked for an organization that existed here in West Virginia to serve people with developmental disabilities. So I've always focused my work on individuals and families that were struggling. I wanted to do public interest work from the time I was a teenager, really. I saw my mom go through a lot of real difficulties related to her employment. She was severely injured in a work accident. She worked in a packing plant. She did cleanup on a kill floor, which is incredibly grueling, really dangerous, and really challenging work. And she had a traumatic brain injury when I was 16 years old. And that really changed the trajectory of her life, which was already very difficult. She had 6 kids at the time, and she had just divorced my dad. But her attorney helped her to get some money from the packing plant. So I could see how attorneys could make a big difference if they showed up and they represented their clients. And I saw that the people who were most likely to need attorneys were probably the people who were the least likely to get them.
What are some of the things that you learned, that you took away from your experience as being a lawyer?
Part of the reason I was not sure I could do some of the things that I do now was because I grew up in quite a difficult house. You know, we had a lot of violence, there was a lot of mental illness, there was a lot of sort of out-of-pocket behavior that we all know families that are struggling like that. You know, some of us are in those families. And so actually having those experiences gave me a lot of insight into how to relate to other people. It really helped me decide to practice empathy, because there are a lot of choices that you can make when you experience trauma. You know, you can try to heal and then try to let that influence how you are in the world. I think sometimes that was a difficult balance for me as a young person. And over time, I worked very hard to try to understand the way those challenges work in a family, and to sort of just see my family as a family like many, many others struggling with problems that are worldwide. And then I just work to help those families wherever they are. So there have been times when I have been overwhelmed, but there are times when I, just really am heartsick. I was practicing domestic violence work. So I was working with women who had been battered or who had experienced domestic violence in their homes, and they were trying to deal with the challenges that accompany that. And that was very difficult because I experienced a lot of domestic violence. But that process of using what you know, however you learned it has been very helpful to me in my life. And I've met some remarkable women, and I've, really come to terms with a lot of things that I've experienced, and I think it made me a better lawyer.
So I read your website.
Oh, thank you. Not a lot of people do.
I read that you are a foster parent.
Yes.
Yes. How did that come about?
It's a funny story. I've always wanted to be a foster parent, and I've always wanted to be an adoptive parent. I had a case where I had a kiddo, and he was always on my mind. I was I knew that he was in a bit of a precarious situation. And it's funny because I really identified with a lot of his anger and resentment and his feelings about, just being fed up with grown-ups, just being done with their nonsense. And I was basically told that they were going to misplace him. They were going to put him in a place where he should not be. I just knew that if someone didn't intervene soon, that it was very likely that he would become one of those unplaceable kids. They're not unplaceable because there's something specifically wrong with them. They're unplaceable because they don't know how to eat, they don't know how to sleep, they don't know how to soothe themselves, they're emotionally dysregulated. But all of that's for very good reasons. And so we ultimately adopted him, and he's a great kid, and we love him.
So let's talk a little bit about your campaign.
Sure.
When was it that you decided, I'm going to run for office? Or maybe you just thought somebody's got to run against Shelley Moore Capito, and I guess I'm the one to do it.
I couldn't see a focus on families and their real life problems. I couldn't see an understanding that, there are absolutely economic issues in West Virginia. There's absolutely environmental problems in West Virginia. But there's an absolute necessity to tie those to the welfare and the well-being of families. Because that is the heart of our problem, that we have families who can't step out on a limb and advocate for better conditions in many cases because they're too financially strapped to do that. They can't seem to get anyone to hear them when they say, not only does the school have to stay open so my child can get an education, it has to stay open so I can go to work. It has to stay open so that I can take care of my elderly family member. I was concerned also about the fact that women are not treated equally here. There is a lot of misogyny. How is it that the United States of America, where we allege that the Constitution matters in its entirety, we tolerate people who want to suppress 50% of the population? And so part of my passion about this is that, I have a daughter, I have sons. And, I know every day that it is a challenge as a parent to manage my boys, to teach my boys how to interact with women. And so part of my goal was to make sure that we begin to focus on women's issues and female equality, because we do not have that. We don't have it.
Curious, since you have all of this childcare experience especially, what is your opinion on the childcare issues that we have right now? I know that some people are thinking, maybe the federal government needs to step in and give some money to different childcare facilities so that people can go to work, because they can't afford to stay home with their kids anymore.
Oh, we need to direct a substantial portion of our taxpayer dollars to creating the opportunity for parents and other caregivers to succeed. Mm-hmm. They're extremely insecure in their jobs. They often don't have health insurance. And frankly, it's because we don't respect them. Why a CEO is respected more than a grandma who takes care of her 5 grandkids, I do not know. Mm-hmm. This is an upside down world that we live in. And you can 100% see it in the way that the federal government has categorized certain professions now. So you're a professional if you're a pastor, but you're not a professional if you're a teacher. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but there is nothing more difficult than getting 26 7th graders to do a single thing, let alone teach them all manners, teach them how to behave, when we have this whole other diversionary aspect of our economy that is literally, making money off of every second they're diverted from learning a single thing. The idea that a teacher would be considered unprofessional is so insulting. I have had this wonderful dad that I knew whose wife was very, very sick. And the thing was, he was a primary caregiver before she passed away, before she got sick. And he was loving and nurturing, and he was caring and supportive and understanding, and it's a wonderful human and a wonderful dad. That dad was working like a one-armed wallpaper hanger. That's what my grandpa used to say. He's working like a one-armed wallpaper hanger, to take care of this child, support his sick wife, do all the things that he needed to do, work to support the family, work so he could keep health insurance for his wife. But that's literally what everybody is doing now. Moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas. I had a case recently where I have a grandpa. He is raising multiple children with disabilities, making $16 an hour. How does somebody support 3 kids making $16 an hour? How is that supposed to happen? How is that humanly possible? It's not. We've created an economy where the people who are trying the hardest are being put through this unending gauntlet.
I know that one of your pillars is empathy. What do you think empathy looks like within government?
I think there's a basic thing that needs to happen before empathy, which is that you need to know who pays the freaking bills. Who is paying for you to sit there to make decisions about their life, about whether their kids should be drafted, about whether or not you should try to get a tariff on a country that supplies tomatoes, on whether you should kick immigrants out of the country who pick tomatoes.
Accountability.
None of these people should be here if they don't want to work. If you don't want to show up and represent voters, don't do it. Go do something else nefarious, right? Go make more money doing something else. The challenge we have is that folks are being put into these positions to vote against us. And they're being put there by people who believe that they can own, if they own enough of the radio waves, if they own enough of the producers, if they own enough of the media, that everybody will eventually fall in line like sheep and decide that it's okay to have your own money spent to destroy your life.
So what would you like to see from your representatives? What would you do if you were elected?
Well, I think the most important thing is to say, I'm not going to spend a single taxpayer dollar to harm you or another taxpayer or a citizen of the United States of America. I'm not going to spend money to hurt you or to harm you. I am going to take the tax dollars that every person in the economy provides, whether they're paying taxes on their food or taxes on their rent or taxes on their, their car tag, whatever it is they're spending money on. And I'm going to say that you are valuable, that you matter, you're a human being, and I'm not going to take your money and then use it to harm you. I'm not going to take your money and then use it to harm your local school. I'm not going to take your money and then send your children off to war. At the very minimum, can't we just have a floor that says that our tax dollars should be used to provide us with the services that we deserve? Not because we are somehow lazy, because if we were lazy, we wouldn't have so much money to spend. You can't be the most wealthy country in the world without somebody doing the work. And none of these guys at the top pay taxes because they don't work. It really is horrifying. Even just the big, beautiful bill. If you could only roll back that one thing, if you could only sit down and say, what we're going to do is we're going to create a budget that will serve the American people, serve American families, serve our elders, we would be so far ahead. I'm terrified because I know that if the Republicans have a majority in the House and the Senate next year, they're going to begin immediately cutting Social Security. Mike Johnson is already saying that they need to address, these entitlement programs because they say, well, it's 74% of the economy, right? Think about this. These are entitlement programs because every time you get a check, money comes out of your paycheck and goes into a specific fund, goes into the Social Security fund. What they want is access to this fund for their own nonsense. The reason they would cut Social Security benefits is to access this pool of money that's designated only for your Social Security. If you're so lazy, if you're so incompetent, if you lack agency, how come the money that you're earning is 74% of the economy? They can see that a terrible wave is coming. But the wave that's coming is that we don't have enough workers to continue paying that amount of money. and they don't want to pay their fair share of taxes to make up for the lack of workers. If you take all of workers' efforts and all of their income and you basically pay them so little that they cannot afford to pay for their own medication, they cannot afford to pay for their own childcare, they cannot afford to pay for their own needs, they can't afford to pay for a family, even if they work full time. If that's a situation you create because you run a company that has to concentrate your wealth up at the top and the CEO makes millions of dollars a year, you're creating a situation where the taxes on the workforce and the taxes on work just cannot keep up. They've literally created this situation. They just don't want you coming after their money to take care of the problem. So they're going to come after your money.
What this reminds me of is what, West Virginians fought with the mine wars and with company stores. It feels like we're being exploited.
If you feel like you're being exploited, it's because you are. They don't want you to save for the future. They don't really want you to buy a house. They're making it harder and harder to buy property because private equity goes around buying up all the extra houses and all the extra homes. They don't want you to own anything. You can't fix your car because you have to take it to the dealer who has to fix your special computer. You can't take it to your Uncle John. You can't buy a television and just watch the television with the free waves that go through the air that are given to these corporations with FCC licenses. You have to pay to get access to television through a subscription. If you have a child, they have groomed your child to be addicted to a device or a program or a TV or a cell phone or whatever it is, because every second that your kid has their face on the screen is a second that they can sell to somebody else.
So how do we fix this?
I believe in the power of regulation. I believe in really taking a moment to just appreciate the effectiveness of the regulations that we had in the past, to appreciate the effectiveness of the departments that were working very, very hard to save our lives, to save us from the Ebola virus, to save us from COVID, to save us from cancer. I think it's very important to think about how important those agencies were that inspected our water, that required that chemical corporations make sure that they only released a certain amount of chemical waste into the water that we were going to drink. And I think it's time that we demand that those entities be protected because they exist for us. We can't allow these vast monopolies, whether the monopolies are entertainment or information or chemical or petroleum. We cannot allow these monopolies to continue to concentrate power, continue to concentrate wealth. And some of these people are bad actors and they should be prosecuted. We should not be trading or contracting with corporations that use commodities that are mined from the earth with child slaves. We should not be making our international trade decisions based on, agreements with other countries that harm our children. We should have a government that works for us, that is paid by us, and that is accountable to us. It's not hard to imagine that such a thing could exist. We have this beautiful document called the Constitution that creates the separation of powers because this choice of a person with a lot of complex personality problems, you don't get to have an impulsive, feckless guy who's gone through multiple bankruptcies and multiple wives and is super entertaining and fun to watch, and a person who's really careful with your tax dollars. Those things don't come in the same package. But what you can say is we have a list of required traits, required values. We can insist that our leadership display and exhibit and maintain a commitment to human existence and to human beings and human welfare.
What I'm gathering from our conversation, we talked about how West Virginians are being propagandized for this sort of agenda by mostly, let's say, President Trump. If this is now your opportunity to get in front of them and have them understand at least one thing, What is it that you want them to know?
I think the most important thing that I want folks to know is I get it. I get that it is overwhelming to think about these political things on top of every single other thing that you have to deal with in your life. But whoever you are, wherever you are, no matter how young or old you are, no matter who you are in the state of West Virginia, you have a right to demand that your leadership puts your interests first and that they work for you, that they act in a way that's respectful of your tax dollars, that's respectful of your time, that's respectful of the care that you provide, whether you get paid for it or not. West Virginians work harder than anybody else. No matter what it is that you do for your community or your family, it's valuable and it matters, and you deserve to have leadership that sees you, and you deserve to require them to show up. I appreciate it when people say, "Thank you for coming, no one ever comes here." And they tell it to me a lot. But what I say is, I'm just a taxpayer like you. I just live here like you. I'm just a person. This is a job interview. I have to show up. You shouldn't be saying, "Thank you for coming, nobody ever comes here." You should be saying, "Where the hell have you been?" So I have a long list of things for you to do. And I want West Virginians to believe that. I want them to know that. I want them to hold me accountable. I want them to hold all of us accountable. If you elect anybody and they're not doing the right thing for your family and your community, they shouldn't be there.
They're not doing their job.
Yeah, fire them. Fire them. Hire someone else. Who are they working for? Are you working for the state that pays you $174,000 a year? Even though it's a lot of money. This guy over here is going to pay you $20 million, right? Are you working for the people in your state who depend on your participation in Senate committees to make sure that they don't lose their SNAP benefits or their ability to send their son to rehab or their ability to get treatment for their grandma's COPD? It is really, really worth voting, because if you don't vote, you can't complain. And I'm a person who needs to be able to complain. So I'm going to vote every time. And it's worth the time. And it's interesting too. Some of these races are really sexy and fun and interesting. We've got some interesting personalities. My race is particularly interesting because Shelley Moore Capito and I are like very different kinds of people, you know, and we have very different ideas about who we serve and who we work for. But I'll tell you what, we have wonderful candidates in every single ballot position that should be considered and taken seriously. And wherever you live, those people are going to have an impact on your life. Every election matters. Every vote for magistrate. Some people think, well, that doesn't matter. Well, what if you get a ticket or you get evicted? You know, you want to know that you voted for that guy, and then you have to vote. That's the most important thing, because no matter how gerrymandered a district is, voter turnout will win every time. If we can just spread this idea that we deserve to be treated with the utmost respect because we pay these people salaries and because they have the honor of having our votes. I want kids to be able to stay here. I want families to be able to stay together. And I know that if we build a quality of life that's worth staying for, that they'll come, you know, our kids will come back, because it is the most beautiful state. You know, I've been to it's fair to say I've been to every corner, every county. Even if I haven't had a chance to stop and do anything stellar, I've been through it. And there's not one county that's not as beautiful as the most beautiful places in the world.
We have the best people too.
Wonderful people.
Even when I'm frustrated with my parents because they voted for Trump. You know, though, that person would literally take the shirt off their back for you.
Oh yeah. I think that the very interesting outcome of our primary was that we did not, I think we ran our primary on about $28,000. And if you had told me that that was humanly possible, I wouldn't have believed you. because I wouldn't have thought like we could have done as much as we did. But it only goes to show you how far a dollar goes in West Virginia.
Right.
It goes far. My real takeaway from that is you deserve to have someone in leadership who's frugal with your money. You know, I get so frustrated and mad about the amount of money that's being spent in these campaigns. It's enough money to solve real problems. How many kids could go to daycare? How much health care for childcare providers could you get if you had $1 million? Right. So I just, you know, I'm hoping that we'll continue to run our campaign in a way that is human focused, that is committed to the well-being of our state, that doesn't take shortcuts to try to undermine anyone. We rely solely on Shelley Moore Capito's record. You know, I'm sure she's a lovely person, but she has consistently, repeatedly, over many, many years, voted us into the position we're in now. And it is very bad, very, very bad. And that's true of all of our Republican leadership. We are in a very bad position. And it's inexplicable other than, you know, you keep making the same bad decisions over and over and over and over and over. And I don't care what the reason is. I don't care if you're supporting the president or if you are, if you just are a bad idea factory, okay? You can't say we have a surplus if we have to close our schools. You can't say we have a surplus if we drive on rutty roads. You can't say we have a surplus from which you can help yourself. And corporations can help themselves to tax cuts. You can't say we have a surplus if our kids are hungry and if our moms don't have childcare and our dads don't have childcare and if people can't even afford to go to work and they can't afford to keep the oxygen on. I'm sorry, but that's a situation that was created on purpose.
Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you for letting me chat away.
Yeah, we covered so much ground. I feel like you're probably ready to get out of here too.
Well, I eventually have to go home.
I could talk to you all day.
Oh, well, you know, and we can again. We can again.
Yes. Okay.
It's a real joy. I appreciate it.
All right.
And I still have to finish my delicious beverage.
Yes. Finish your kombucha. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Cheers.